Welcome to Materials and Methods Matter. In this episode, we will explore the technique of ink wash. What is ink wash? It is the successive layering of light ink washes to achieve a variety of values. These are the basic tools needed for creating ink wash: pigmented inks, water, and brushes, and of course paper. I prefer to do ink wash on either a watercolor paper or a heavyweight drawing paper or a mixed media paper. The traditional method for creating ink wash is to dilute a pigmented ink into water. In this case, I'm using the Higgins Black India ink, and I have my water and applying this with a brush. But first we need to make our ink wash. So I'm going to take and add a drop or two of ink to the water, and then take my brush and thoroughly mix this up. Once I've mixed up my ink, this would basically be my ink wash. I can test this by taking my brush and brushing the solution across some white paper. This is probably perfect for our light value ink wash. We can then take the ink wash and put this into a bottle and save it so that we have it for future use and don't have to remix each and every time. Be sure to write down the number of drops of ink you put into the volume of water. This makes it very simple. To fill the Aqua brush is simple. What we need to do is uncap our pen, unscrew the reservoir, which I already have water in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my mixture right in the brush pen. So I'm going to take my dropper and I'm going to add about 5 drops of ink into here. I'm then going to re-thread the brush tip onto there. Always put the cap on before you shake it. And what I'm going to do is shake this up just to get the ink, distribute it. Now I can take my cap off, and on a piece of paper towel I'm just going to squeeze the brush and get it started. So you can see that we have some solution coming out. So now we're ready to test our mixture, and this one looks pretty good. When this dries, may be a little dark. I would probably go either 4 drops, 5 drops. It depends on the ink that you're using. But this looks pretty good for an ink wash. Here's a reference of ink values per drops of Higgins Black India ink added to an Aqua brush reservoir. The top one is 5 drops, the middle one is 15 drops, and the bottom one is 100% ink. You can see that we have a gradation from a light to a dark. It is recommended that you create your own value chart for future reference with at least 5 values. 7 values is even more practical. I usually work with at least 7 values or more. To create a 5-value ink wash chart, simply draw out a series of 5 1-inch squares. And the first thing we want to do is basically create one continuous wash across all of the squares. And once we have this wash, nice even wash on here, what we could do is we want to let this dry. Once it dries, then we can go on to the next step. You can also use a hair dryer to speed up the process, but don't forget to dry the back of the paper. The next step in creating our value chart is to come in 1 inch, and we're going to add another wash over the top of our previous one. You can already see that it's getting darker, the second wash. So we're going to go ahead and fill in our whole area. with one continuous wash. And then we're going to let this dry. Again, if you can use a hair dryer to dry this. It's actually a good advantage when you're working with ink wash, but don't forget to actually dry the back of the paper to remove any moisture. For the third wash, we want to come in 2 inches, and we're going to go ahead and do our third wash over the previous 2. And again, we want a nice even wash. This is give us our nice value chart so we can see what happens when we add this many washes, one on top of the other. Again, let this dry and we'll go on to the next step. For the fourth wash, we're going to come over our 4 inches and we're going to go ahead and add in this wash. For our last wash, we're going to fill in our last 1-inch square. And now we have our complete value from our first light value all the way up to our darkest value. With ink wash, you're not limited to just black. You can also use colors for an ink wash. Try a warm and cool complementary pair, such as this reddish brown and a blue. Besides black, brown, or sepia ink are one of my favorites for monochromatic drawing. Stay tuned for the next episode of Materials and Methods Matter when I demonstrate the ink wash technique in this feather illustration. Materials and Methods Matter was inspired by my book, Making Art, Materials and Techniques for Today's Artist. For more videos on Materials and Methods Matter, as well as lesson plans and other instructional videos, visit Thalo.com.